Hey, it's me, Todd Novak from the Guitar Knobs. Oh man, we got a great one for you. We got a sort of an EP version of our typical show, so we're really excited about this. Jared and I had the extreme pleasure of sitting with Jeff Schroeder, the guitarist for Smashing Pumpkins, and Drew Foppe, his guitar tech, and also builder of Foppstar Amps and pedals. Now, for some of you longtime listeners, you may realize, wait a minute, this is about the third time Jeff has been on the show. You are correct. And if you are not a longtime listener and you want to listen to those episodes, I highly encourage you to go back and do so. Jeff has been extremely generous with his time, as has Drew, who is in the middle of trying to get everything set up for Jeff's show, and he still takes time to walk us around and show us all the gear and geek out with us. So huge thanks to those guys. Drew has some awesome news for us all, breaking when this episode is releasing. So that's going to be really cool. So make sure you check out his website for details. We were at the Blossom Center at Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, where the Smashing Pumpkins took the stage after Noel Gallagher and the High Flying Birds and AFI. Jared and I hung out with Drew and Jeff in Jeff's dressing room, which was a little bit reverby, and we got some room noise, so hopefully you guys can bear with us. We brought a Zoom H4 and put it in the middle room and just went for it. So your forgiveness on any lesser sound quality than you normally receive from us is appreciated, but we believe the content will more than make up for it. So huge thanks to Drew and Jeff for inviting us out there and hanging out with us and giving us an absolute fantastic night of rock and roll. We really appreciate what they're doing, and we hope you appreciate this episode. And without further ado, and away we go. Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Jared Brandon One Pickups.
Hey, it's me, Todd Novak. We're super thrilled that you are listening to our little show, the Guitar Knobs podcast. It's a little bit different today. Jared, on the show, we typically are talking to, boutique builders of guitars and gear and whatnot, and sometimes we are talking to people that are making music with those things.
That's right.
And making people that make the music sound really, making sure that they're on point. And today, where are we?
We are in Cuyahoga Falls.
Yes.
And we are blessed to be in the presence of Mr. Drew Foppe and Jeff Schroeder of Smashing Pumpkins.
That's right. We're at the Blossom Center, and we're getting ready for a show. We are in Jeff's dressing room.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some stuff. This is like a little EP version of our show.
Special segment.
Yeah. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for having us. So one of the main things that we want to share with you guys is that Drew has a new amp out, and we want to let him kind of talk about that a little bit and then get into some of the stuff that he's doing for Jeff. And then Jeff's going to share a little bit about some of the guitars that he's playing and a little bit more about the current set on tour.
Sure.
And it should be a super good time. And you guys have your 4 on the floor, right? No,
I do. I have it ready. I'm ready to go. I got you. It's changed a little bit.
See, I don't. Drew, you can go.
Yeah.
Mine hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's 3 H9s now, right?
No, actually, I did. But they did drop by. Even had dropped up the Rose analog,
yes.
And that is a really cool pedal.
It's totally trippy. I plugged it in and I was like, oh man, he's gonna love this thing. I was like, oh, too much for me. I'll just put it back in the box.
Yeah.
But on this, with this tour and stuff, the band will use the pedals the same. We haven't changed really the rig since the last tour, so there's really not much to talk about.
Not mostly the same songs, but you're pulling from the same library.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only thing that changes is the type of buffer we use just for
that's true.
Logistical reasons, and it's working out great. So.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna cut to something that I saw in Jeff's rig.
Okay.
That I don't want to forget, which was you've got your 2 tuners, right, up on your workstation.
On my workstation.
Yeah. So not the actual rig, but
Yeah, there's 3 tuners.
And then you have the EQ.
I do have the EQ.
Everybody
Explain that.
Everybody asked about the I've even
Yeah,
asked about
even the Slipknot guys, B-Man asked me that this morning actually. Because he used to be a tech, he's a good dude. But it's like the number one question I get asked all the time when someone sees a picture of my work box. I have guitar cable plugs into a Boss EQ pedal, nothing special about it. And then it goes to the new Peterson HD Stomp pedal, which is amazing. And then into a Boss TU3, and then out to a TC Polytune. The reason why I have the EQ is because I work for a lot of different style bands, and a lot of bands like in the pop and Latin and even rock world use sensitive passive acoustics or acoustic instruments like banjos and mandolins and 12 strings. And sometimes when you're on a really, really loud stage stuck behind the subs, the guitar itself puts out a resonant frequency when you're trying to tune. So I have a cheat for it, for the specifically going into a strobe tuner is you can change the graph to cut all the low end from the guitar and just boost the mids and highs.
Right.
Which basically is all it's doing is it also gives you the ability to have a volume boost. So instead of using like a buffer, which a lot of guys I've seen use buffers and they just use that to hit the tuners a little bit harder with acoustic instruments, or actually use a magnetic pickup over the strings, which is really good, but it's kind of awkward to do. The EQ pedal just lets me hit the tuners a little bit harder with a really soft pickup system, which is with no volume or anything. And then, the graph lets me literally choose what frequencies I want to delete or boost in the system, and it works really well, especially with the 12 strings when you're trying to do the thin, the double highs and stuff like that. Sometimes it just doesn't register on a G or something like that with the sub kicking the acoustic and vibrating the top. So it's a little secret, but it's not a secret. You know what I mean? Everybody has their way, and I started doing that out on Fleetwood Mac, and it was because I was literally getting pounded by the PA system on the ground, and I had no choice. Everything's like Nashville tuning with capos, and it works really well with guitars on capos with really thin strings. So on the 12 strings and Nashville tuned guitars and banjos with a resonant top and all that stuff, the graphic is, it's a lifesaver some shows, And also, and on those days, it sounds so weird, but even a silly clip-on tuner can react faster than anything else because it's picking up the full vibration of the guitar.
The snark.
So just to get there's nothing wrong with the snark. I have like literally 6 of them, and I bought them all. I used to use the snark on Jimmy's mandolin during the last tour, just to reference it because Solara was the song before, and it was just rocker and trying to get a little, or a ukulele, I say mandolin, a little ukulele. It's tough to tune that little thing in a rock show. So every little bit that you can use make your job easier helps. So. But
between those 3 tuners, do you notice a lot of discrepancy in tracking, or not even tracking, but in terms of how it picks up the frequency, the notes?
I do. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I do find that the TC Electronics, the Polytune, is pretty accurate compared to the Peterson. But the Boss will reference faster. So like when you're just trying to string real quick, you just pluck the string. I'll use just the Boss. But usually I have those 2 tuners up there specifically because that's what a lot of guys on stage use. So if they have, like on Whitesnake, Joel has a Boss tuner, and Deftones, Gino has a TC. So I just kind of use whatever they got so I can reference what they're seeing, but then also actually intonate the guitar with a strobe. And then within the strobe, I set programs basically to take each string specific sense, sharp or flat, depending on the tuning and the scale of the guitar and the gauge of the strings. So like if something's in like a C standard, I actually have to tune it like 5.4 cents flat for the low C, because when he attacks it, the initial you don't want the initial to go sharp.
It'll go sharp, yeah.
But you also want the resonant to sit. So the way to do that is just microscopically tune it flat, but it's precise every time because it's on a strobe. And then I know where it lands on the other 2 tuners because just from seeing it a million times. But I definitely judge off the Peterson first and then the other stuff. But if a guy's saying, hey, I want So a lot of guys will say, I want this string tuned a little flat. I always have problems with it.
Right.
I'll say, okay, well, let's get it to where you like it, and then I'll, put it on the strobe and see where we're at.
Yeah.
And then when I do that, I can set a preset for them. And then is it out of tune? Yes. But is it in tune how they like it? Yes.
Right.
So, I do hand people guitars out of tune to their liking because of how they play. It's very weird and strange, but it sounds in tune when they play it because they grip it hard or they hit it hard, and every little cent that you're flat or sharp, or even like James Taylor has on his acoustics, every string's a different cent off.
Really?
So when he plays it, it's a chorusing effect with itself.
Oh wow.
We used to do that with 12 strings with Neil Haywood on Fleetwood Mac. It was just like we would take his high strings and the double strings that are the same, we'd take them a little bit, one sharp, one flat, so it sounded like a chorus.
Interesting.
So like on Go Your Own Way and stuff like that. So that's stuff like that. I mean, players, not everybody wants a guitar precisely in tune because of how they play. So you adjust, and that's why I have so many tuners. It's not that I'm a collector or hoarder of tuners, although I do have millions of them.
As a guitar tech, it'd be one of the things that you would have.
Well, on that note, I mean, you 100% read my mind, because that's where I was going to. Because like everybody plays it a little different, so the idea of tuning it to just open, is that valuable? Jeff, do you play? Are you heavy-handed? Or are you light? I figure you'd be kind of light.
I've gotten less heavy-handed over the years, and I can just actually tell, because usually that's where my nail is totally destroyed, but like now it's fully in. Like actually, this is like half the tour in, it's no damage at all.
Yeah.
So I've learned that. I used to think like, digging in is better, and sometimes I will play aggressively, like on a lead or something. But in general now, I realize like, to make a guitar sound good, especially with high gain, like not always hitting harder isn't going to actually get you more distortion.
Right.
It's like you think like, I'm digging in, and there is a certain sound to that, but also when you think about like a lot of the guys, I like even if someone like Van Halen or something, but he was using like nines, tuning down to E flat, even drop C sharp, using like really light strings, thin picks, but the sound is very percussive and aggressive. So it's a lot of it is deceiving to what you would think it would sound like. And I think that what I found over time in terms of trying to get good tone is, especially with the string and the pickup, it's like you're trying to get the string to kind of bloom more like a this. So if you're going like this, like a very, nobody can see it, but if you hit it really hard and it's like kind of jumping all over the place and then finally settling in, you're not getting a consistent kind of distortion profile. It's like getting like a little bit buzzier and then kind of mellowing out. And so I found that to try and get actually like a bigger consistent sound, you actually don't need to hit as hard.
Right.
But a lot of it too is, because I've kind of started using thinner strings, is kind of how you shake the left hand, like the vibrato and stuff, and so to me it's just kind of a combination of all those things. So I find that I actually don't play as hard as I used to.
When you're using compression out there, right? I mean,
on some presets
I do, sometimes I do have a compressor on,
right.
for sure.
Because that would also negate the need to like really dig in to a degree, wouldn't it?
I kind of use it almost more as like a drive. Like I kind of hit the front of the amp a little bit harder.
Okay.
With I use it less on clean, more on like kind of semi-distorted sounds where I just want it, like I want a little bit more gain, or I want to be able to play with like this kind of light distortion but have it be consistent.
Like a crunchy box tone.
Right.
Yeah, I'll use the compressor. And the Helix, there's like I think it's like LA2A.
Yeah.
I like the studio comp because of the way that it sounds more than, even though there's a kind of a Dynacomp model, but I feel like that actually changes my sound so much, like those pedals tend to do, that I use kind of like the studio model one.
Has your jazz training influenced your rock playing?
Oh, for sure. I think it's just more of a kind of a knowledge of the fretboard, and kind of now I think even like on some songs that we play, I'm so much more conscious of like the chord tones I'm landing on or starting from, like what if I'm starting on a fifth or a third or a seventh, or where before I just kind of whatever key just kind of just go. At least now I know where I'm starting and where I'm landing. So that in a big thing is something, I think, because rock guys tend to just think scale over chord, where jazz is, for the most part, fundamentally, you're thinking like, okay, kind of this chord tone to that chord tone, and then there's various ways. You might go up the scale, you might do chromatic surrounding of the notes, you might do an arpeggio up, you know what I mean, with chromatics too. But so that, I think it's just kind of philosophically, it's just a slightly different way of thinking about where, like I said, rock is more about like a certain type of tonality of like this scale over this kind of key center.
Right.
So yeah, for sure. But at the same time, in this band, no one wants to hear like a lot of outside runs, and like, you know, those chromaticisms don't always sound great in rock.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, but it's just more of like kind of being like an awareness. Yeah.
How much do you play off of? I know, you know, in past interviews we've discussed. By the way, those listening, if you haven't heard the previous interviews, go back and check them out. You were really early on. Like, I still can't believe that. Like, I was like, what?
That was good. Yeah.
I think episode 1. I might get this wrong. I think it's 103. It might have been 103 and 37. I think. So go back and listen to those. Anyways, you have mentioned before that, you know, talking about stage dynamics and stuff, where you're up there to make sure it sounds amazing.
Sure.
And you pretty much like letting Billy do the show. That said, are there times when you are like really reacting to either like what the crowd is doing, or if you're finding inspiration of something that Jimmy's doing, or that
I think compared to the last tour you saw, which was the Shiny No So Bright tour, which was more of like a bigger scale 3.5 hour show basically, this set is shorter. It's only 90 minutes, and we actually, I would say we don't like, it's not like improv, but we improvise within the song structures a lot more than on that tour. Like with certain songs like Super Christ, Blue Skies, Bring Tears, and we're playing Fire and Rain by James Taylor. They're different every night.
Right.
Like, you know, within, I mean, obviously the song structure is the same. We're not improvising, but so the kind of the foundation of the song is the same, but like I played completely different leads every night. I don't play anything the same. And then Jimmy plays completely different stuff. So in that realm, we completely reacting off each other.
For what it's worth, you just mentioned Jimmy, and I was trying to explain to my kids. I was telling them about the band and letting them listen to it and everything, and I said, that's my favorite drummer of all time. And they asked me why. Most people, oh, that's cool, you know, why? And I said that I feel like his drums are the second voice in the Pumpkins, where it just is. Anyways, that's for the drum podcast. Go over there and listen to that. But
no, it's true, because I think Jimmy, more than other drummers, really plays and reacts to the vocals.
Yeah.
And so that's such a huge difference in where, you know, drummers most usually fundamentally are just thinking about what's the groove, and I'm just playing this thing that I'm into. Yeah. And everybody plays off that. He is actually interjecting into the conversation all the time. I mean, then that's really what makes him an exciting drummer. I mean, he'll tell you, like, every night you'll be like, it's totally different.
Yeah. I mean,
not totally different. It's not like we're going up. It's not like, you know, Jazz Odyssey up there. You know what I mean? But like every
Return
night,
to Forever.
Yeah, it's different fills and different. You know, he'll just go. We'll all go for different things.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So the previous tour was a show.
Yeah.
And this is maybe a little bit more of a band.
I would say
setting.
so, because that was, you know, because like I said, when you do a 3-hour show, you have to have a different mindset, and so we had video screens, which were with synced video, and so things kind of had to remain the same. And it's a different crowd, where this is, you know, we don't have any video. We're not playing to many backing tracks like we were on that, and so we're just able to. It's a little more
raw.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's raw, because the band is maybe even smoother in a certain way, then even that time, like we're playing.
I mean, react like in the moment.
It's a little more reactive, a little more because it's short. So I think we're playing heavier, more in your face, more to the point, a little bit darker.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes riffs just come in Jeff's head and I'll just start playing them. Right? So I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
You'll find out tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of riffs and finding out tonight, one of the things that I caught a glimpse in a picture, and I asked you about it. I said, "Wait, you playing a new Flying V?" And I love the idea of a Flying V in the Smashing Pumpkins, and I love the idea of a Flying V in the Smashing Pumpkins in your hands, because usually you're pretty controlled, and so talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's an Epiphone actually, Flying V. It's the Dave Rude signature guitar, and Dave Rude is he's not the new guitar because he's been in the band probably as long as I've been in the Pumpkins, so he's probably been over 10 or 12 years. I think he's been in Tesla. But I became, through other mutual friends, Dave and I have become friends, and so this year at NAMM they debuted his signature model, and I think they just started coming out with them, so we were talking and he offered to give me one, and I said, yeah, I'll totally use it, during the set, and we got the guitar. I think we got the guitar, actually I gave Drew the guitar the day of the first show when we used it that night. It's a great sound, obviously great looking guitar.
Yeah. Explain that a little bit.
It's a white V, but the fretboard is also painted white.
It's lacquered white, just
white
like
maple.
The body.
Yeah.
No fret markers on the front. It's got side dots and red pick guards.
But it's it's almost kind of tortoise. But it's not real tortoise shell.
Nah.
Well, because that'd be cruel. We don't do. People don't. It's actually hard to get real tortoise shell. Or impossible. Not impossible, but
it's expensive.
Sure.
Tony hates working with it. Our friend Tony, the Guardian, he just. It's really difficult.
Yeah, Tony's not here. We miss you, Tony. Sorry, you're missing out, buddy.
Tony Baloney.
So you're playing that on a couple songs.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a great playing guitar. I mean, I think it's like list. I looked on Sweet, maybe it lists for like $1,100-1,200 street price, like $800 or something like that. I mean, totally affordable guitar, and I mean, it plays great. Plays great. I mean, it sounds really good. I did have, Jared bring some pickups because there's certain things that I specifically like. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the pickups that were in it, but I think for my sound, kind of what we already have going on, I knew that your pickups would actually give me more of what I wanted. So we are changing the pickups as of today.
Right.
But even like I said, off the shelf, it's a great guitar.
And Jared, you want to talk about those pickups at all?
Yeah, they're really cool. I mean, aesthetically,
Thank you.
The guitar look amazing.
Yeah, so they started out as new old stock clear bobbins, and they're old T-top bobbins, and I'm pretty sure they're from the Kalamazoo factory, and Gibson didn't use them all. So anyway, I ended up with those about 10 years ago. I still have them, and what I did was I painted the inside. I made them like a zebra, so you have red on one coil and you have white. So instead of your traditional black and yellow or black and cream, it's red and white zebra. But in the center where all the little metal poles come out, it's clear. So it looks really. It kind of looks like the knobs a little bit. It kind of has that look, like you have a white underneath clear, just like the knobs on the guitar.
When you first showed me a picture of those, I thought you had went them with your red wire, because he's got red wire too.
Yeah.
And I was like,
dang, that looks. I initially did that, but the red wire I thought was just a little too orangey for the really dark red that's on the guitar.
Right.
So I really wanted to match it as well as I could. I thought that
looks great, and those are your basically kind of PAF. Alnico 4 magnets, right?
Yeah, they should be 4. They might be 5. I don't know.
4 or 5, whatever it takes.
But yeah, I mean,
who's counting?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Cool. So we're gonna hear those tonight.
Well, because I have a couple other guitars on this, or some Yamaha Rev Stars that we put his pickups in, and we were talking about it, because they're kind of vintage output, and I have guitars that have really high, the Duncan JB is what, 16 almost?
Yeah.
And you would think that there would be like a kind of almost like such a radical gain disparity, but there's really not. It's just more of a tonal difference. I think that, we have a high gain rig, so the distortion's pretty jacked up as it is, and so it's almost less of like getting less of like more or less distortion. It's more just like a tonal thing. And yeah, I've really grown accustomed to kind of these PAF style things, because the clarity is that's because ultimately that's kind of more where I'm moving to, is like I want the sustain, I want the distortion, I want those things, but I want clarity more than anything. And I found that something as hot as a JB, which is obviously a classic sound, it's you can't get away from it, and I really do like the sound of a lot of records that have that pickup, but it also is very specific. It kind of doesn't have a lot of diversity in the tone, especially if you're wanting to roll the volume back and stuff. It doesn't clean up as well as certain things.
Do you play a lot with the volume knob?
Yeah, for sure. Less obviously on like the songs like Bullet with Butterfly Wings or something. There's really not a lot of space for that, but yeah, I'm always kind of riding the volume knob.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I find that interesting because there is so much going on with your actual rig that the knob would be able to control quite that much.
Most of the time I do stuff with the knob. Yeah. There's one song I had, we put in a volume pedal, because sometimes actually it's easier to use a volume pedal, but most of the time I like to use the knob.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of volume, Drew, we've got your new amp out there.
Yeah, it's still a prototype. I got 2 prototypes out here. It's been a long work in progress, and I'm pretty happy with it right now. So
awesome. And for the record, we're gonna have you on not after this tour, but I think you have another.
I jumped to Whitesnake for a little South American run, and then I'd come back mid-October.
Right. And if you are able to work it in during all the building of all this stuff,
we're gonna fit that in.
You'll be on for a full one pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm excited. Got a lot to talk about as always. Super nerd.
So let's give us a little preview on your amp.
Okay, so I make really limited edition amps based on classics with my own twist on it. I normally only make 15 amps per model. I never meant to get in the amp business. I built one for myself, and then old guitarist I used to work for said, "Hey, I'm gonna buy an amp." I was like, "Funny enough, I'm just making one." He's like, "Okay, I'll take it." I was like, "Well, I didn't tell you anything about it." He's like, I trust you." I was like, "Okay." So, and then his name's Jim Kaufman, and he's a producer in LA, and I used to work for him. He used to play guitar in a band called Opiate for the Masses way back when. So, but since then, he's bought serial number 2 of everything I've ever built. So it's kind of a thing we have, and I make him a special number 2.
That's cool.
Who you keep number 1?
No, I sell number 1s. Yep. The only thing I keep are the prototypes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but this new amp,
I get like number 15.
well, sometimes he's a little late to the table.
These are like the kind of the leftover parts. Like
I send him all the jalopy stuff, anything that's slightly dented and scratched and missed. No, I'm just kidding. No, he wanted a pink one, so I came out with a limited edition pink run just for him.
Really?
Yeah.
The one you have
the pedal.
The pedal.
The Royal
I love
Prince.
the pink. I think that's great.
Yeah. So
you should do another run of
He
those.
wanted a something silly, and I was like, I can do that. So I did.
More LA Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like it matches your guitar over there.
Yeah, fluorescent light in it.
I love that thing.
There it is.
So on this amp, people have been challenging me to make a different type of high gain amp, because all my amps before are based on 50s and 60s designs, right? So on one amp, my first amp was called a London. It was basically a low wattage tweed bassman on the front side, and on the second side was a JMP, and then it had bias tremolo with different speeds and all that stuff, which were all foot switchable. And then the second model was called the Lil Ray, after my little girl, and That one was a tweed amp, but it had a switch on there for the preamps, let you go from a Princeton to a Harvard to a 5E3 Deluxe. Rerouted all the preamp signal and changed the negative feedbacks and all the gain structures and all that stuff and the levels. So it gave you 3 tweeds in one amp, and I did that in a head so everybody could do it. And the third amp was called the Iris, and that one was like my flagship amp, and it was 50 watts. And basically it had a 59 Bassman, 66 JTM 45, and a 72 high watt custom preamp. And it was all switchable, not foot switchable, but switchable on the back with master volume and stuff like that. And everybody loved all those amps. And then someone challenged me to make a high gain amp. It's like, okay, so for the last 2 years I've been working on this design for a high gain amp. And then funny enough, one of our audio guys out here said, you know what, man, it'd be really cool if you did like something small that everybody could just play and, you know, take the tones wherever, because no one wants to carry this big amp around. I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So for the last, you know, I guess couple months, I've been taking this design that I've worked on this gain channel, and I've shrunk it down, and my new amp's only 2 watts. So I finished the design.
It's like the Apollo 13 of.
I mean, it's crazy. So the new amp is 2 channels, 2 watts, and I finished the design in my hotel room in Madrid on tour with Pumpkins, and so I had to come up with a Spanish name, so I called it Los Dos, which means
Perfect.
both, or, you know, so 2 channels, 2 watts, both of everything, you know,
Yeah.
2 of everything. So, but
It's a handsome looking one too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be black and white pinstripe. You know, some old hand wired grill. It's gonna be a head or 110 combo, something crazy. But the head weighs 15 pounds, give or take. And combo's gonna come in probably like maybe 18 pounds with a speaker and a little bit larger cabinet. But
And are those going to be for public sale?
they are for public sale. So on the 22nd of this month of August, I am releasing the amp for pre-orders, and I just turned 40, so I am doing a special.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm doing a special limited run of 40 of these amps, which is way more than I normally make of any amp.
It's a lot of amps.
It's a lot of amps, you know, and it's a lot of holes I have to drill.
Yeah.
Now, is it 40? Are you doing like half and half?
I'm gonna do, so if someone wants a head or a combo, it counts towards the 40, right? So I don't want to do 40 heads at 40.
Sure.
It's just 40 amps, all limited edition, signed, numbered, and dated, and personalized to whoever buys them. They're all hand wired tube amps, foot switchable.
What kind of tubes are in that?
So I'm just, I haven't fully decided on the final verdict tubes, but the clean channel is going to run on a 12AY7. So the reason being is I've tried every tube in there. You can switch it to whatever, like a 12AX7 or whatever, but the way it's designed is I took the preamp from my Iris amp and I shrunk it down and I made it simple, so it's just a volume and a tone knob. And then I put a bright switch on there. So if you're playing a Strat and it's too bright, you can make it a little darker, Les Paul, vice versa. But the gain structure on there, you have crystal clean to literally AC/DC crunch just on the clean channel. Now the dirty channel is a master volume with a gain, which seems weird for 2 watts, but it really is where the amp shines on this dirty channel. Like I said, this was an amp that I was challenged to do just for the dirty. So the clean channel is just a bonus on this amp, which sounds incredible on its own, but
it does.
Thank you. So I had the gain structure picks up where the clean channel left off, so you can have the gain down like at 2 and then crank the master volume, and you're sitting crunchy Vox territory already. Mm-hmm. And then the gain is going to go all the way up to like a modded 800 Bogner, think Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains, Tool. It's pretty much all in this amp, and then it's treble, mid, and bass, volume and gain. So
now, how does that? I know that you've kind of talked about this is perfect for being able to play in the home without having the cops called on you, but still getting that pure amp sound and gain out of the amp.
Right.
But is this a giggable amp?
So it pretty much is. I mean, on the dirty channel, you can push 118 dB off of it. You know what I mean?
Man.
It's loud. 2 watts is pretty loud. all tube, and basically the design reacts like it's a cranked 50 or 100 watt amp. You have the feel, the low end. It's crazy. I mean, you literally have to hear it. And I know you guys heard it today when Jared was playing it.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yep. Thank you. But it's gonna blow people's mind when they find out it's only 2 watts, because it has the feel, the feedback, the 3D articulation that a cranked amp has, but you can play it at whisper levels and it doesn't suffer from tone loss. Mm-hmm. It's not like a normal master volume amp. It's literally running full voltage all the time. Send it either channel and it reacts like a cranked amp, and you get that power amp distortion that most people are trying to get, right? But they're going deaf trying to do. So I mean, so the combo is going to be 110, but it has a 4.8 or 16 ohm selector on the back, so you can run the internal 10 inch and then plug it to a 412 as well, and then you can have 10s and 12s. So it gives you, especially for studios and stuff like that, but even on stage, I mean, people use Blues Juniors. I know they're 15 watts or whatever, but I would put this against the level of that any day of the week at 2 watts. You know, it won't max it out as far as how clean that amp can get. But if you're going for a crunch tone, it's going to be just as loud.
And that'll probably eliminate some pedals too.
Yeah, I mean, and it works really well with volume knobs too. I mean, think about it. When you play with a Les Paul or whatever, like Greg Germino from Germino Amps makes killer amps, you know, and I used to follow his stuff all the time and be super nerd with him. We used to talk about stuff every once in a while, and he just figured it out, like how to make the amps react different with the volume level, and took some notes from him over the years, and you know, Brian Gerhardt at Top Hat Amps and stuff like that. When I was in a band 100 million years ago, it feels like I played at Top Hat Club Royale, amazing amp. So all these boutique builders that I've been in contact with, I mean, they share some knowledge here and there on how to do stuff and why they do it, why they don't do it. So I've taken all that into consideration over the last, 7 years of building amps. So it's been fun.
Yeah, that's on how to get an amp to kind of clean up.
Yeah, like why they use specific parts to make it sound good at lower wattage amps.
Sure.
So
I've
been really into low wattage amps lately. So someone said do it, and it's like, okay, I'll do my best. And it turned out, I'm really happy with it. I think out of all the amps I've designed, I think literally a 2-watt amp is my favorite design because it does so much and it offers people so much more than what they would ever think. It's not just like a practice amp or something like that. I mean, it's a full functioning, giggable, if you might get amp.
That's why I brought that up, because I think anytime you say, oh, you can play it at home, immediately it's like, well, if this is like a toy amp, obviously you're not making toys.
No, definitely not a toy.
No.
It sounds like, it is a real amp. I didn't say it sounds like it is like a full real amp.
I'm a real boy.
Yeah, but I have studios right now who are really excited to get one, from their, of kind of what they're looking for. They're like, you mean I don't have to crank this Marshall in this room, and you can actually be in the same room as the amp, and for people who do, like especially married dudes like myself, like if you want to play guitar at night but you don't want to buy another $1,000 type of attenuator or anything like that, which nothing wrong with that, but if you just want the amp to sound great all the time at any level, right, then this is your amp, so
the thing is even because I tried that at home, like I'd had in my studio, I just have extra room, and I started to have all these 100-watt Marshalls, and I got attenuators. But the thing is those amps, when you run into attenuator, they're still like loud coming off the tubes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're in a room, it's like you hear this other noise where this amp doesn't have that at all. Which is I think is so cool. I really think for a studio, it's such a great thing that you can actually just be in the room, get the kind of reaction between the amp, have the monitors cranked, don't have to worry about. You're literally playing off the amp instead of having to hear it through the monitors. It's really great.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I think that's, would be like something for recording would be awesome.
Yeah, and it gives people the tone variety. You can go anywhere from the Beatles to highest gain as you really want. You get Van Halen. I heard Jeff play some Van Halen.
I played a bunch of different guitars through it because the other day the guys from Reverend stopped by and they brought a bunch of guitars, and so I get to play like like the new, like the Reeves Cabril's signature guitar, which has a super hot pickup with the sustainer, to, you know, I think they had a Kyle Shutt guitar, which actually the pickups aren't that hot, you know what I mean? But like it handled all these different, like, but totally different style guitar. And then I played this Ibanez, I played my Yamahas through it. I mean, I just today the Epiphone with the Casino.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I mean, I don't know. It's like kind of like the history of like tube amps in one head.
It takes you different places.
Yeah,
for sure,
like the clean channel to me is very American.
Right.
You know.
Which you'll get in the Britpop territory real fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not tons of headroom, but it's enough to. I mean, you can definitely.
You can get like this loud, crystal clean. Like, you know what I mean? You can play pretty clean on it.
Yeah.
Which I loved. Yeah. So it was cool.
Well, see, we were just talking about the idea of chasing the tone. This is on the last show that we had, and it was how people are using pedals to stack to try to emulate the oddities that can come from a live rig that is being pushed. Instead of going, it's going to go into this pedal that's going to make this very specific sound with a pure clean headroom, right? So it's kind of only going to do, you know, in theory, only going to do what that pedal is telling it to do, as opposed to juicing it and getting all the cool freaky stuff that kind of happens when you start getting different harmonics and frequencies happening. And so what you're making solves for some of that to a degree. Obviously, when you have much higher volumes, there are other things happening, but we're trying to emulate the sound of a fully freaking pushed amp with overdrive pedals.
Totally, and like with this new amp I have, it's not even like you're emulating anything. You're getting that tone.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Like I said, you literally have to hear it because it.
Yeah.
I mean, to compare to anything else isn't fair. Like I play the Marshall Class 5 amps, and those are great for what they are. You know what I mean? But the cabinet design and whatever, it definitely needs a speaker upgrade. You know, but it's a great little circuit, or whatever. But it doesn't touch even the clean channel of what the reactiveness and the 3D, basically the harmonic content of the amp, because that amp can only do so much, but you know,
yours felt very alive. Like,
right.
So we plugged in.
It's weird.
I heard, you know, it being played, and you got a couple clips out there on Instagram, and it sounded good there. But you're also going, well, I'm hearing that through Instagram, but hearing it live was, it felt very alive, but not obviously overpowering, and it didn't feel like it was cheating because it was a lower, you know, volume.
Right, and that was ultimately the goal, right? So just trying to make something that players are used to hearing, but not having to go deaf to try and get that tone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, what I like about it too, though, even on the distorted channels, even if you crank the master all the way, you get that kind of power amp saturation in a different way, or you can crank the preamp and have the master a little bit lower and get more like that modern high gain type of sound too.
Right.
So that's really fun.
So you're building those. One of those going to be available?
So they're not officially available. I'm going to build them one at a time, and they're going to be made on a per order basis. But on the 22nd, just a play on the Los Dos thing this month, I'm opening.
That's coming up.
Yeah, and
that's
a couple
like in 2
days.
days.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm opening pre-orders. So all it takes to reserve an amp is 50% down, and then when I finish it, the rest. I am a one-person company, so I cannot front all the parts for it. So a down payment allows me to have all the stuff shipped to my house.
Yeah.
So the heads, we came up with final pricing the other day. $2. Plus. No.
You need $1 now.
They're totally affordable. The head is going to be $15.50 plus shipping, and then the 110 combo is going to be $16.75 plus shipping. But totally affordable, 100% hand wired, built one at a time by myself. Every hole I do myself, drill it on a drill press, every single thing. It takes me forever, but I don't want to cheat anybody out the experience of what I've offered at 15 amps per model. I'm putting the same love and time in every single one of these, so they will take some time to build, but that's why I'm hoping people get on this list early, because I do anticipate them all selling out.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate by December having any that haven't been pre-ordered. So fingers crossed. I don't want to like jinx myself. I've had a lot of interest on it from a lot of cool players and studios and all my stuff. Like I don't really have huge advertisement where pretty much everybody who owns one of my amp is an artist I work for or a tech I've worked with, which means they're already out on tour with them. So it's been great. So people who have them are already using them on tour. So that speaks for itself. For as far as for me, people are like, well, I need to hear it first, and like, when you're gonna have a demo amp. I've had a couple people ask me, can you send it to my, like other guitar techs, hey, do you have any you can send out? My guy wants to try one. I was like, I really apologize. They're made to order, but they can just trust me on this one. And I've never had anybody not like the stuff. It's been really good for me, because I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I'm just putting my take on how I feel amp should be.
Now, the one that we heard out there, is that 00 or is that 01?
That is stays in my bedroom. However, I have serial number 1 out there, and serial number 1 is going to our audio guy out here. His name's Clark. He's the one who challenged me to do a low wattage design.
That's cool.
And
he deserves it.
And
he told me that this Yamaha THR amp sounded better than that thing. THR sound great too.
They do sound great.
They're $300.
Oh man, friends like you who needs enemies, man.
Who can make this thing sound like?
You could probably mod that thing.
So number 1 and number 2 are spoken for.
They are, and normally I don't do that, but it's something that I wouldn't have even done this without Clark. Without the challenge of. And originally we were going to do 2/8 desktop thing, and it still may be an option for people who want 2/8 just for fun. I will be making that cabinet when I get home. I haven't been able to figure it out yet. So
I have a question for Drew.
Yes.
Because, and all of you guys, but to weigh in, I think it's a good way to end it. So
cool.
I saw on Tim Pierce's YouTube show, he goes to some vintage guitar store that's next to his studio, and they had one of these new amps that's basically a reproduction of Jimmy Page's Supro.
Ooh.
And like, I guess Jimmy Page gave his actual Supro to this guy. He for years went through and took readings of everything, and so they were able to recreate the amp, and I think they made 30 of them. And so, in the quick, Tim plays it with the tally, and it sounds amazing. It sounds exactly like Zeppelin 2, Zeppelin 1. It's like the sound. You're like, holy shit, that's it. I'm like, wow, that'd be really cool. And so then I went to, I can't remember what the name of it's like LA Vintage Guitar or something in Burbank or something. I don't know. They have it. And I looked at the price, and the price was $30,000.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
For a brand new amp. Drew, please explain to me, how could one amp cost $30,000? I think it was like $30,500 or something. Right.
It wasn't even.
It was like an extra $500. Like,
it's just a jack inside.
If you're gonna pay $30,000, you'll pay the extra.
Yeah.
Plus tax. How can people charge that much? Well, I mean, it's supply and demand, really. They have something that.
I mean, they're signed by Jimmy Page and all that. Yeah, I mean, this is but still,
You and I both know it doesn't matter what gear you have. You're never going to sound like the guy you're trying to sound like, because you're not that guy.
Right.
You can get as close as you want.
Fingers.
That and just
Technique.
like the brain, and you need all of that. But why it's $30,000? I mean, good on them if they're selling it. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I can't for that.
To raise the prices.
I mean, well, I try to make my stuff affordable to everybody. So but. But even like the John Mayer signature amp, it's like 10 grand, right? So from PRS, it's not cheap. And I understand like some of those amps take a lot of research and time, but I think with that one, I think it's literally.
You're buying something that other people can't have.
Yeah, and
well, the obviously the exclusivity of it, but
right. But I'm even like the old argument with the Dumble amps, why they're $50,000 to $80,000 nowadays. It happens.
Yeah.
And they sound great, but I mean, Two Rock and PRS, they make the same thing for less.
Yeah.
But if
I've got the Black Magic, the Super Black Magic, and I sound just like Jimmy Page.
Totally right.
is that basically
on a really bad
night? As much as you look like them.
Is basically the same amp?
Yeah, that's they modeled it after it. So like if you open it wide up, what's interesting is it's got 2 channels on it, but it's not clean and dirty. There's 2 channels, right. So you can either have the first channel or you
because bands back then wouldn't have clean and dirty.
Right.
It'd be like
so
two different voicings.
You can get really subtle different voicings depending on how you mix the 2 together.
Or you can jump them.
Yeah, it's essentially like it's exactly what it is. So if you run out of 1 and 2, but then kind of like if you lead with 1 and it's almost like stacking a drive.
Right.
It's interesting, subtle, but it's there.
Super makes great stuff. When Bruce Inke went over there and basically kind of redesigned some amps. I mean, they took off and they're still going. Robert Keeley has his own
he did a lot on it too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, great company. I got if they're charging 30 grand.
Well, they're not making that.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's like some other.
Okay, I'm gonna say because Super can charge whatever they want.
No. It's not. To be clear, it's not a Super.
Okay.
Yeah, I traded mine for a Hot Rod Deluxe, so it's
okay. Well, I'd be intrigued to see it, try it. I mean, I got no hate for him for it, but I think
in LA, you can go and try it out.
Maybe
cool.
I have to get to LA first. But
It still is not as much as a Dumble, though.
yeah, no. I mean, you can get Dumbles for discount, but not for 30 grand. Way more than that.
Yeah. Well, dudes, I want to be respectful of Jeff's time. He's got a show to go play, which we cannot wait to go see. And I really appreciate you taking time.
Yeah, it's a really good build. So for
us.
those who don't know, because maybe, I don't know if this will come out maybe by the tail end.
No, it'll be out like pronto. I'm gonna fast line this one.
Okay, so we have 8 shows left kind of
Right.
today.
Yes.
So it's a great build. AFI, the opening, and then Noel Gallagher and the High Flying Birds, and great. And then so it's a really great pack. It's a really musical night. I mean, every show has been awesome. So it's like one of the best tours I've ever, like, in terms of vibe-wise. Like, Noel's crew is great. Noel is awesome, hilarious guy. And
everybody out here is great.
it's
total
lots of Brits.
Everybody's always arguing over their football team.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
All right, well, we'll wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and make sure you get out and check out all of the Pumpkins' latest release stuff, and I'm assuming there might be something like
we're working on a new record. I mean, we started right before we went to Europe, so in like May we tracked drums, their bass drums. I think we're gonna maybe track 1 or 2 more songs with what Jimmy's gonna do, but basically that. So September, October,
awesome.
we're in Guitar Land, doing that. So
cool.
Yeah, so there's a new, like, when, where, how it's gonna come out. I honestly couldn't tell you.
Sure.
I don't think anybody knows. But next year there'll definitely be new Pumpkins.
Looking forward to it. Drew, thank you so much. We're going to have you on soon. Jeff, thank you. Have a great show. And we'll see you guys later. Subscribe! Yeah. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.